No, you did not get clickbaited. I really do believe that there are millions of Americans out there right now that are driving their vehicles that are nicer than what they can afford. Maybe they're driving multiple vehicles that they don't need, or so on and so forth, that have such elevated car payments right now that is the reason why they can't invest and plan appropriately for their retirement down the road in the future, let alone their dream retirement down the road in the future. And so we're going to jump into a couple things. First, we're just going to go through like the state of affairs in the automotive market as far as payments, total debt, that kind of thing. And then we're going to jump into a real life scenario of how much it's costing you in those automotive payments versus if you were to be investing that money instead, or at least a portion of it. Okay. So, but before we get started on any of that, I want to be very, very clear with everyone. I fully understand that it is extremely difficult in today's day and age, unless you live in a metropolitan area with very good public transportation, not to own a vehicle or not to have a payment on said vehicle. Okay. That said, I think we can all agree that there are definitely millions of Americans out there that are driving nicer vehicles than what they can afford. So for instance, the brand new 2025 truck or SUV, these vehicles that are $60, $70, $80,000 starting and easily can creep up to 80, 90, 100 plus $1,000 for regular, let's call it family vehicles like Yukon Denali's and things like that, right? Or, even some of the Wagoneers and things like that are very, very expensive. Those car payments are well above the average car payment that we're going to talk about today, but I think we can all agree on that. And there are millions of people that are driving around vehicles like that, and then they're not investing for their future, right? Because of those payments. And so even if you cut those down, you'd have enough money to invest. But then there's also millions of people that have a second vehicle that is nicer than maybe what it needs to be, right? So in other words, you have a second vehicle for commuting back and forth to work and you have a car payment on it, when really you could probably sell that vehicle, get into a used one, and be debt free on that car payment and free up a few $100s a month. Regardless of any of that, just know that there's no judgment here. I just want to provide the information, maybe spark the conversation, get your head spinning, and then also more importantly, just show you the possibility of what it looks like, and also the cost or potential cost, opportunity cost of having that car payment versus investing. So jumping right into it here, let me share my screen. Here's just from LendingTree, the statistics as of today, at the time of this recording in 2025. Americans, as a total, we owe 1.65 trillion with a T in automotive debt. Okay. So that's huge. The only debt category that's higher than that in the United States is mortgage debt. And that kind of makes sense because mortgages cost hundreds of thousands, or homes cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So that makes sense that would be bigger than automotive. But you can see automotive is the next biggest, I would say, stress on Americans' finances. Okay. So that's why I'm so passionate about talking to it. It's very controllable in many cases. And so that's why I'm talking about it. But that's not even, where we're going with this. Where we're going with this is the new data is out on how much a new vehicle payment is on average in the United States. And that number is $742 per month in 2025. In addition, a used car average monthly payment is now $525 per month. If that wasn't bad enough to put icing on the cake, the average new lease payment for a new lease is $600 a month. So those numbers should scare you a little bit. Those are significant for the average American today. Okay. So we're going to take that data and we are going to run a couple scenarios. Okay. We're going to make some assumptions. Before we get started on our assumptions here though, I just want to be very clear that this is not financial advice. This is not a guarantee on investment returns. Everybody needs to make their own assumptions on what they think, would be a quality investment return. I'm going to talk to you about the assumptions I'm making here. But again, this is not financial advice. This is information purposes only, just to show you some comparisons and what's possible based on some assumptions. So the first assumption that we're going to make is we're starting with $0. We don't have anything invested. Okay. The next assumption we're going to make is maybe we're 35 years old. We worked real hard up until 35 to get ourselves in a situation where we either reduced our car payment significantly, or maybe we were able to get rid of our car payment completely. Okay. And so we're 35. We're going to have 30 years to invest until we're 65. That's our financial plan, our goal to retire at 65. So we have 30 years. The next assumption we're going to make is that we're going to get a 9% return on average for the next 30 years because we have a long time horizon. We're going to invest aggressively in equities, and that's going to be what we're predicting for our average return over that period of time. Again, there's no guarantees there, and this is not financial advice or any type of prediction. The next thing we're going to go ahead and assume is we got rid of a new car payment. So maybe we're just in a situation where we paid off that new car, and now we're going to drive that thing for another 10 years, right? Like, what's wrong with that? Let's just make that assumption here. So $742. And during those next 10 years, we're going to save enough money on the side to where when we have to get another vehicle, we can get a used vehicle or even maybe a new vehicle, depending, without debt. Right? So that we never have this debt payment again. So I think those are important assumptions to make here just to show you what's possible. So based on our assumptions here, you can see it's a very significant, very material amount of money, $1.35 million. But before we keep going, if you want this calculator so you can run these assumptions and run these calculations on your own with your own personal data, go ahead and check out the link below and download it. It's free. It's on the website. Save it, use it, share it, do whatever you want with it. But it's pretty cool. Or just use any other calculator that you can find online. That will work too. But you can see in our assumptions here, $1.35 million. So that's huge. It's huge in a lot of different scenarios. One, maybe this person never even thought they could get $1 million something by the time they retired. Okay. Or maybe this person was investing in other investment accounts and, their financial plan looked like they were projecting to get $1.5, $2 million, by retirement. And that didn't really allow them to have their dream retirement. That just allowed them to retire, with some dignity, but it didn't give them what they really, really wanted. And now this other $1.35 million that they could potentially have here in investment return over this period of time by making smart decisions with their vehicles, now they can have that dream retirement. They can go on those extra vacations. They can visit their kids more often. They can do all those things that they really want to do that they had to really plan on paring back because of their current plan, right? All by making some decisions here with their vehicle, right? Pulling on this lever. So this is a lever that can be very significant for your long-term financial health and meeting, your financial goals over the long term. But let's not even pretend like you had a new car payment. Let's just say you were able to get rid of your used car payment, okay? Which was $525 a month. You can see here, it's still material. It's still almost $1 million over the course of this time that by having that car payment ongoing, because let's also be honest about that. Most people that have these high car payments, they just roll them over into the next vehicle, as that vehicle's, wore out its welcome at home. They don't like it anymore. Or whether they start having issues with it, they're like, okay, I'll trade it in. Or, they want the new car smell. Whatever the case is, most people carry these payments on for life. Okay. So, but let's say you figured out a way to remove this payment. It's still almost $1 million based on some assumptions. And even if you want to move this interest rate down to 7% or something else like that, you're still talking well over $500,000. Okay. And that's starting with zero today. So these are very material, very, very big numbers. I'm going to move this back. Then let's go one step further. Let's say, yeah, those are payments today, but I already have a used vehicle and I just always build my payments around and never go any higher than $300 a month. Okay. Let's look at that. $300 a month is still over $500,000 based on the assumptions that we made. And I think that's material. Again, maybe you don't think you're going to be able to have anything other than Social Security in retirement, right? There's a lot of people that are in those situations paying $300 a month and they just, they're not saving for retirement at all. And they're just planning on Social Security if, that's their plan. This amount of money is material and can stretch a long ways and enhance retirements and things like that. The other thing we're not talking about right now is also today's cash flow. So in the case of emergencies or something else like that, when you don't have car payments or you have significantly lower car payments than average, Now you have more flexibility and less risk in your day-to-day life because your cash flow is higher, right? So let's say you didn't have that and you were on an investment plan and you couldn't invest for a couple months because you had some emergencies pop up. That's okay. That's better than having car payments where now you have to pull out a credit card to pay for those emergencies because you still have to make your car payment. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. We're going to go back up here. I want to show you one other graph. So in this calculator, you can see the investment growth projection. That's all down here as far as that table goes. But I want to show you this graph. And the reason I want to show you this is I think for a lot of people, let me make sure you can see the whole thing. I think for a lot of people, what happens here is it's hard, right? They can't get properly motivated. They can't really wrap their head around compounding growth and what's possible. And so that's why the main reason I wanted to do this video on what's possible. So this is based on the $525 a month payment for those 30 years or whatever. If we can figure out a way by 35 years old, and even if you're older than 35, it doesn't really matter. Like, the numbers might look a little different, but it will still be material. Okay. By saving and investing that $525 a month, it's real hard because I think a lot of people get 3 years into it, 5 years into it, especially if the market, is doing this like it does. Their investment returns aren't much different than the total amount of money that they contributed out of their own pocket by, let's even say, year 10 here. Right? There's not that much of a difference. And it was very painful to drive that older vehicle while all your friends drove the brand new nice one. And it was very painful to come out of pocket every month and spend $525 to invest, right? Where, you don't see it. It's not tangible in your hands. You're not driving it, and everybody else is getting newer vehicles and stuff like that. Trust me, if it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, it's because I do, because I live it, right? I drive a little bit older vehicle. Trust me, I would absolutely enjoy driving a brand new 2025 F-150 or something else like that. But I'm not willing to drive it to forego my current lifestyle that I want to provide for me and my kids and my family, in addition to my future dream retirement. I'm just not willing to do that. Okay. So back to this graph, what I was saying here is, you look at 10 years and there's not a huge difference, but I called this the power of compounding for a reason. The power of compounding is exactly that. You get through that tough phase where it's very painful to keep investing because you're not seeing a ton of payoff for it. Right. But look at what happens when you get to like year 15, right? Now it's really starting to take off. Get to year 20 and now you're hockey sticking, okay? It's a hockey stick up and to the right. That's called exponential compound growth. And you can see it really creates a gap from what you've contributed here, which is what this blue line is, versus your total value of your investment portfolio, which is this orange line. And each subsequent year from there, it continues to compound higher and higher and higher. And so that is the importance of doing it. I wanted to show you this line chart because I think it's important to know what's possible. I think a lot of people get discouraged, a couple of years into it. It's really hard to stay disciplined that long. When that $525 each month could immediately, have an enhancement on your life, extra dinners out, a nicer vehicle, those kind of things. But this is the price that you pay for that, right? This is what we would call the opportunity cost for spending that money on a vehicle or whatever else versus investing it. Now, I'm not saying you have to be so frugal and cheap and not live your life now and plan for the future. Not at all what I'm saying. Ideally, you would try to do both. I just want you to be armed with the information at your fingertips to be able to make good decisions. Okay. So that said, I appreciate you watching the video. If you got value out of this, if you found it interesting, please do me a favor and give it a thumbs up, like it, share the video. If you have questions or comments, please leave comments down below. I'll do my best to answer all of them. And then also consider subscribing to the channel. The more people that subscribe, the more people that actually YouTube pushes this out to and other platforms push this out to that can see this. They can get more financial literacy. They can make better decisions. They can get cool tools like this financial investment calculator that I built for everybody. And I really just appreciate your time. And as always, take care.